I'm Mike Cahill. I've been working on the Pyth Network for a while, first from Jump, where I was contributing to Pyth, but also doing a bunch of other stuff. And now as the CEO of Douro Labs, where it's, well, the primary thing that I do today. So I'd like to take a little time to tell you why we're hosting this conference for the Pyth ecosystem. Before we do that, though, I want to take a little bit of a time travel to get a sense of where the ecosystem has come from and what it consists of today. All right, so Pyth is an oracle. It's architected to bring the best quality financial data on chain to build blockchain applications. And it does this by incentivizing companies to make their valuable data to be incorporated into Pyth prices. So this is the idea. Let's go here. So this is the idea. Picture yourself, June of 21. Pyth Network is really just an idea. It consists of, well, at this point, 5 trading firms and exchanges that have agreed in principle to try out this experiment. It was live on 0 blockchains. There were 0 price feeds, and there were 0 users. But it needed to have a set of characteristics. So it needed to be transparent, auditable, have very low latency and high speed. And in order to do that, it was decided amongst this group and other participants to launch on Solana. Solana mainnet, meaning that there would be the ability for everyone to see updates at the same time. So there's full transparency. For everyone to have full auditability using a block explorer. And also to be using the block times of Solana, 400 milliseconds, which is fastest amongst all the major layer 1s or layer 2s, particularly at that time. So Pyth launched on Solana mainnet a little while later. So let's go here. And you can see, so Solana mainnet, we're on 1 blockchain. Integrations are 60 almost. There's 80 price feeds. The thing that stands out to me is the number of publishers. So it's the idea of Pyth is really what came out first. The idea of creating supply, of re-engineering the way that market data has been constructed historically. Market data as a very valuable business had only been limited to distribution or commercialization amongst large exchanges. This new architecture opened up the field, democratizing it so that new companies could monetize their market data, contributing to an open protocol like Pyth that would allow builders to create things on blockchains. Effectively, we had 2 problems. The first one was that there were not great Oracle solutions available for high speed, low latency, expanding to symbols of all different asset classes. And the other problem was there was a very limited sourcing of market data. The Pyth idea was to change the architecture of that. And you can see here in this first window of growth, 65 publishers joined up the network before there was all that much demand, right? Now, there's some demand, of course, 59 publishers, 59 integrations, not nothing. It was over 90% of the total value secured on Solana. But what you found was the most reputable names in trading: Susquehanna, Jane Street, Hudson River, DRW, Optiver, Flow Traders. They all joined because they understood the value of what a network could do. You've got exchanges represented in the US, MIEX, MEMEX, IEX. These are the 3 smallest US equity exchanges. And early on, they understood the power that this network could have. FX exchanges like LMAX, crypto exchange at the time, even OKEX and Bybit. And we saw a big increase in sort of participation. And the price feeds grew steadily by 83. By the end of the year, we had about 83. So if I think about the supply during this time, it was very exciting, but it was also terrifying. And let me explain that. So 65 publishers updating 2 times per second, so 400 millisecond block times on Solana. That gives you 22.5 million updates per day per publisher. There's 83 symbols. And Pyth didn't yet have smart filters for redundant prices or transaction batch updates. So we're talking about a peak max update time of around 11,000 transactions per second. And this was during a time when Solana was heaving at 2,000 transactions per second. When it would reach this, things would get a little dicey. And the block space would oftentimes get spammed by people trying to win an NFT mint, by liquidations coming through and getting very clogged. And of course, there was a little bit of downtime on Solana back in those early days. Pyth was consistently taking up 50% of the Solana block space every single day. It was not scalable. This was the idea behind creating PythNet. PythNet was the first independent SVM. Basically, it's a way for Pyth to own the entire block space, not just pay for half of the block space on Solana. And it was possible because Wormhole was now live, allowed PythNet to be an app chain island and connect to mega cities, different blockchains. So let's go on ahead in the timeline. And immediately you see a number of increase in the price feeds. Nearly 3x'd in 6 months. Now this is really important because unlike other oracles, Pyth price feeds are available to any blockchain Pyth is connected to. There's 232 in March 2023. All of those price feeds are available on every blockchain, 17 blockchains at this time. I would consider this period the finding product market fit period. So the PythNet technology was a leapfrog in the Oracle space, no doubt, but it required an entirely new way to integrate. And it was unclear whether or not this would be adopted. There's a whole lot of education, rewriting of code, writing of documentation, just constant shipping during this period. It was probably the most stressful period I can remember during the journey. But it was really worth it. Over this course of 6 months, Pyth went from being the primary oracle on Solana, very reputable name around an oracle, but it was limited to Solana, to being on 17 blockchains, starting to change the mentality that Pyth is not limited to a single ecosystem, but was now cross-chain. The number of integrations doubled, and it was becoming clear what the advantage of Pyth using Pyth was. It's high throughput. It was the ability to add in symbols very quickly. It was the ability to scale up to symbols outside of just crypto. And then for this last period, which brings us up to today, everything really started to click. In this 8-month period, the number of blockchains that Pyth was available on went up by 2.5x. So did the number of integrations. Number of integrations almost 270. That's 5 new applications every week during this period. In fact, 25% of all applications that use an oracle, regardless of the blockchain that they're on, are already using Pyth. So just constant growth as well on the publishers front, never lets up, constant growth on the prices side. It really becomes quite a robust ecosystem. So there's a lot to it. Let me show you who it consists of. So here's an incredibly crowded market map that shows you the size and the scale of the Pyth ecosystem, gives you a sense of how expansive the network has become. You can see here there's different types of protocols on the top. These are the application users. Derivatives, a huge sector. Then we've got blockchains, the ones that Pyth has been deployed on already. You can see the different names there. And the publishers. All these publishers are publishing every single day. Many of them are institutions, and in some cases, it's the only blockchain application that they use. They're publishing prices to a blockchain every single day. So when you think about institutional adoption and usage of a blockchain, Pyth is in a league of its own. All right, so now I'm going to get into what you can expect over the next 2 days for this online conference. All right, so I've shown you how big the Pyth ecosystem has gone. There's nearly 100 publishers, 400 prices, 270 applications, 45 blockchains. It's impossible for any one person to be able to keep track of all this, particularly with the rate of growth. And not to mention the 90,000 users of Pyth-powered applications that were eligible for the Pyth airdrop, nearly 200,000 on-chain wallets currently holding Pyth. That doesn't include those that are in an exchange. So what are we going to do? We're going to talk about some product updates. We're going to hear some of the things that developers within the Pyth network have been working on. We're going to hear from users, and we're going to hear particularly about specific use cases and things that they do that are interesting with Pyth data. We're going to highlight some of the publishers in the network. you will see a wide variety from exchanges to trading firms, and you'll hear from them. Why are they participating in the network? What is the advantage that they see to having something like Pyth exist? We're also going to have community voices. In that community, we now have sectors of people that want to participate in governance, given that governance launched 2 weeks ago. And now you're going to, why don't I break down the agenda actually a little bit? So I'm going to highlight a little bit here about what to expect specifically. Okay, so the next presentation we're going to have, next keynote we're going to have, is by Jant, who's the co-founder and CTO of Douro Labs, and he's going to tell you about the current Pyth product line and introduce some things that have never before been seen. And then I'm going to return to the stage with Jant and Mark Tillman, who is the director of the Pyth Data Association. Will be joining us for an AMA from questions from you. Then we're going to have the CEO of Wormhole Labs, Saeed. He's going to be talking about interoperability. Pyth's connected to 45 blockchains, really thanks to Wormhole. It piggybacks on this infrastructure technology, which allows it to scale and connect to the world. We recently saw Pyth have the largest cross-chain usage airdrop. This is only possible because Pyth is connected to so many different blockchains. So you're not going to want to miss some of the stuff that Wormhole is working on. Now we're going to start diving into the ecosystem, where, for instance, Eric Chen from Injective Labs is going to talk about Pyth, and how Pyth is over 90% of the market share of applications on the Injective ecosystem. You're going to hear some of the stuff that they're working on. Then we'll go on to Synthetics. Synthetics has been instrumental in helping Pyth tell the story of what Pyth is particularly great at and why applications like Synthetics need to use a high-speed Oracle, and what are the things that they look for, and how they've integrated in a way that removes latency from the execution. We'll then talk a little bit about marketing. Multi-Chain Advisors has got a nice panel or a nice presentation to talk about the ecosystem, where we are in sort of the market cycle. And then we're going to have a series of keynotes from some of the leading dexes, which you're not going to want to miss. So Polynomial, Helix, GooseFX, and Vela are 4 applications that are really kind of cutting edge and differentiating in their own way, and will give you a good sense of how much this market is growing. One of the theses that I have personally is that within 6 to 12 months, the on-chain derivatives market will be over 10% of the market share of the centralized market. And some of these protocols are making that happen. And then we're going to have Mark to do a fireside chat with Jason Lau from OKEX. And finally, Katya from Bebop is going to end off the first day. Tomorrow, let's run through some of this stuff. So I'll be kicking things off. I'm going to talk about the economics around sustainably bringing data on chain. Obviously, we've architected a interesting idea. It's still early in the journey. It's early in the blockchain ecosystem's journey of using data, but Pyth was built to sustainably support this. And we'll talk about how the economics of that work and compare some of the economics with how things are monetized in the off-chain world. Jant's then going to return, and he's going to talk a bit about Pyth governance, a big topic and something I highly encourage you to visit. So governance launched just 2 weeks ago. Jant is going to talk both about the mechanics of that, as well as give a perspective on how Douro Labs thinks some of these things could play out. Of course, it'll be up to the governance of the community and token holders, and he'll get into some of his thoughts on this. And then we've got a couple panels. So tomorrow's a big panel day. So some of the publishers are going to be presenting, and we're going to have a conversation. Now, in normal times, these institutions are fighting to death in the trading arena. Thanks to transparent incentives and trust guarantees of Pyth, they do find themselves contributing to this important infrastructure for the future of DeFi. We're going to have Gelato talk a little bit about on-chain automation, some of the stuff that they've worked on to help bring Pyth prices onto various blockchains. And then we're going to hear from HMX, another application that's building derivatives on chain. And then a couple more panels. So the first one is going to focus on Solana. So Pyth obviously got its start on Solana. I will be joining on this panel along with Mert from Helios, Nick, and then Tristan from Backpack. And we're going to talk about the state of the world of Solana today and where things have been and where they may be going. And then we're going to move on to some of the folks who are motivated to participate in the Pyth governance and why they're excited about having a say in the future of decentralized oracles. Now, these are going to be some of the biggest thinkers and leaders in the space from a macro perspective. We're bringing you Delphi, Multicoin, Borderless, Castle Island, Wintermute Ventures, Bodhi. They're going to tell you a little bit about their macro thesis. They're going to talk a little bit about where they think we are in market cycles and how to stay ahead of things when things get particularly crazy. Then we're going to move on to some institutions. I'm going to moderate this panel. We'll talk about things like why speed is important and some of the market structure nuances around the markets, both on-chain and off-chain. And then we'll finish with 3 keynotes from some amazing ecosystems where Pyth has recently been deployed. MVMT, Matter Labs, and Fuel. And you'll hear about some of the things that they're doing to differentiate, how Pyth plays into that, what's being built, and where they are in terms of deployment and growth. So it's going to be an exciting 2 days. I will be here the entire time. I hope you will join me. And I welcome you all and thank you for coming to the very first Data Driven 2023.